Hot news: Trump 2 years in, the dealmaker who can't seem to make a deal. The Washington Post. Donald Trump was elected president partly by assuring the American people that I alone can fix it. But precisely 2 years into his presidency, the government is not simply broken, it is in crisis, and Trump is grappling with the reality that he cannot fix it alone. Trump's management of the partial government shutdown, his first foray in divided government, has exposed as never before his shortcomings as a dealmaker. The president has been the 30-day shutdown, the impacts of which have begun rippling beyond the federal workforce into the everyday lives of millions of Americans, is defining the second half of Trump's term and has set a foundation for the nascent 2020 presidential campaign. The shutdown also has accentuated several fundamental traits of Trump's presidency: his apparent shortage of empathy, in this case for furloughed workers. His difficulty. Trump on Saturday made a to end the shutdown, proposing 3 years of deportation protections for some immigrants, including young people known as Dreamers, in exchange for border wall funding. But before Trump even made it to the presidential lectern in the White House's stately diplomatic reception room to announce what he called a straightforward, fair, reasonable, and common-sense proposal, Democrats rejected it as a non-starter. What the president presented yesterday really is an effort to bring together ideas from both political parties, Vice President Pence said Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation. I think it is, and such an accord has proven elusive, however, in part because Democrats believe they have the upper hand politically in opposing Trump's wall and feel no imperative to give ground. What really drove him was art of the deal, that he could get stuff done in D.C. and deal with the knuckleheads, said Republican strategist Mike Murphy, a sharp Trump critic. People saw him. Trump has approached the shutdown primarily as a public relations challenge. He has used Trump's advisors argue the president has been successful at educating and persuading Americans, even though his efforts have not led to a bipartisan deal. You can't turn but the data tell a more troubling story for the president. 1 month into even though he thinks he's doing a great job for his core, it's ripping the nation apart, said one Trump friend, who spoke on the condition of anonymity. I don't think they're behind the scenes at the White House. Some aides acknowledge the difficulties. The president is very much aware he's losing the public opinion war on this one senior administration official said. He looks at the other Trump advisors insist that the president is not driven by political considerations and is focused entirely on protecting the American people and finding a solution to illegal immigration. John McLaughlin, a pollster on Trump's 2016 campaign, said Trump's suggestion to temporarily extend the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which grants protections for some people brought to the United States illegally as children, is key to increasing his popularity. The White House needs to press that button, and more often dangle that out there, McLaughlin said. We need to remind. Some political professionals cautioned against rushing to judgment about the shutdown's impact on Trump's re-election, saying that November 2020 is a virtual eternity from now. This could all be forgotten in a week if and when we come to an agreement, the government opens and the wall is built, Republican pollster Neil Newhouse said. Nobody knows how. Trump has long seen his stewardship of the economy as his political calling card. Yet the instability. Trump's management of the impasse has also drawn criticism about his competence as an executive. The administration, inside the West Wing, morale has been low in recent weeks. Mick Mulvaney, Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, is an increasingly powerful figure who has asserted himself, along with Pence and Mulvaney, in negotiations with lawmakers, and believes there is a big deal to be had. 2 senior Republican aides said senators are skeptical that Pence speaks for the president, after Trump undercut him early in the shutdown. Trump has been preoccupied by the political messaging and stagecraft of the shutdown showdown. The president has also gone days without speaking to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi d. California. and Senate minority. The shutdown has turned into a test of strength between the president and Washington Democrats, particularly the speaker, and how it ends and when will tell us a lot about whether they can forge a relationship over the next 2 years, said Michael Steele, a GOP strategist who has been a top aide to former Republican House Speakers John A. Boehner and Paul D. Ryan. In private conversations with advisors, Trump alternately complains that nobody has presented him a deal to end the shutdown, complains about Pelosi and Schumer, and asks how the fight affects his re-election chances. Aides said they have. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, R. California. Repeatedly Trump has accused Democrats of being insensitive to the dangers of illegal immigration. They don't see crime. Pelosi and other Democrats, meanwhile, say Trump is immune to the hardships of federal workers who are going without paychecks. I don't think that he understands the real-life impacts, said Senior John Tester D.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.